what do you say, buongiorno, also from my side. Yeah, hello also from my side, and thank you, Fabrizio, inviting me, for giving me the opportunity to present here wind in the context of change and transition. Because as you all know, wind has been a niche in the past. It has become a business, and of course always is a question, is a business sustainable? And what needs to do? And I give you a little bit briefing about, or share my experience of being 25 years in the energy business, starting with a little bit nuclear, transferring to conventional energy, and then 2005, the virus, I call it, wind catched me, and that is still the case. So before I start, I have a question, because change is starting always with knowledge. I know my situation and information. So who knows what percentage wind is contributing in the EU to the electric power demand?
15.
Oh, not bad. So
30%. Germany, 30%.
Let's have a look. And as I said, change, transition, and business driving always starts with information and transparency. And you, in these days where we have internet, where we have the wind farms connected, to load centers, you can see on a daily basis what is the contribution in the EU of the individual countries to the electric demand. And that is the thing of Sunday, where you also find Italy contributing 7%, and that's really a leading number. So in winter times, you can imagine it's about 20% in the EU, and of course, percentage-wise, Denmark is well advanced. And as I said, it starts with information and steering. So, I said, transition as an opportunity, and where it starts, it was with the climate protection thinking, it was energy security, and of course, cost. And then it moved to the energy transition, we said, in broader terms, and renewable plays a high portion in that. And we are not here to have fun. It is all about business generation and job generation at the end of the day. Because the people will ask, what's in for me? Yeah. So I go through the following, and I say a little bit theory of a change monster. What happened in change? Then I give you a briefing of the mega trends in energy. Moving on with wind. Is wind a business? What's the economical numbers? Is that real? Is that fake? Then of course you have stakeholders. And going and growing the business, the landscape of stakeholders will change. Big guys coming in, industrial corporates having an eye on, you are not in a niche anymore. You are attractive. More than like a beautiful woman. Really. And big money comes in the game. And then when we have time, I give a zoom in Italy. What is going on here with a new renewable policy? It's drafted. Moving on to technology, because we heard a lot of integration technology. It's humankind. And what are you doing with that? To catch up, to perform, and even take over competition. That requires some approaches which you're normally not used to. And then finally given an outlook, and I hope that I stay in time. If not, Fabrizio, I know you will give me a sign. Moving on. And some of you have seen this roller coaster. It's about change, where it started. It's about stagnation at the beginning. And then there is a decision for a change, for a transition. Because people are recognizing, and I heard here a lot, even I cannot perfectly speak Italian, but I heard a lot of change, technology interruptions, and of course, the environment is changing. And always good, or always needed is, you as a leader are engaging. And I found it very inspiring hearing some of the examples, for example, from Bonfiglioli, integrating on this Megatronic. And even more interesting, I found it took 10 years. Was that correctly?
Yeah, it took 10 years to understand it was the case to do it really.
Yeah, of course.
To do it.
Okay, so, but it takes time, such changes. And I was very inspired seeing the Enzo Ferrari movie. And that took time. But I can imagine, and I bet with you, in 20 to 30 years, we meeting together and talking about the Formula E cars. And for this, you need electricity. That's why wind is there. So there is a roller coaster, but at the end, as I see in your faces, there is always a result. And things moving on. Again, a little bit serious, but experience that myself when I started in wind in 2005, when Siemens bought a small company called Bonus. At that time, 300 million turnover, and in 3 years, we made it to 3 billion euro. So, what happened? I mean, there is a situation, new management coming in, new technology, you create a sense of urgency. There is a need. You pull together, and I see here a kind of guiding team to guide through this, what you ahead of you, the Megatronic things, Industrial 4.4, a guiding team. And that's the leaders of your business. And what is very important, and I saw also in the movie, you have to communicate, you have to market. The marketing of you, Revolution, joining two associations is very important, in and outside. And of course, I always say very simple, I can stand better on 2 feet than on 1. So a very simple, natural thing, joining, cooperating, and moving forward. And that means also to your people, empowering. You can imagine running a business going from 300 million to 3 billion in 3 years. You can't do it on your own. You have experienced that a couple of times. Yeah, you can't do it on your own. Huh? No, but if it's the numbers, it's not about the numbers, it's about the day, 24 hours. It's about the energy you put in. And that is very important. Empower and others, empower the others to act. And it starts on the job floor. So going on, I hate to lose because I'm a water polo player in former times. So especially I hate playing against Italy and losing. And that demotivates me always. Huh? Yeah, we were in Pescara and European Championship, and I was quite young and losing. Yeah, that was not nice. So to motivate, you have to create short-term wins. Very important. Even if it's in your area where you experimental and say, its layer, the first layer worked in the 3D printing, and the second and the third. You said, and that comes really with the people. And another thing, which we all learned, being grown-ups, don't give up. Once you start a journey, you have a clear vision and target, don't give up. Maybe make a detour. Maybe make a detour, but don't let go. That creates a new culture, and that will be a success, definitely. Yep. Can you just... Oh. And that's just to recap a little bit where the energy sector is in, and you are part of it. It is the energy transition, and that disrupts the whole energy chain. From the source to the consumers. You see in big advertising, changing company structures on the utility side, and also the consumers. How they buy power is changing. And then of course also how it is produced. And if we recap the clear objectives, it is climate change, it is security, and we later learn about security. And if you talk about security, it's not the product itself, it is also how it is delivered, and we will see that later on. And energy cost, it's all about cost. And then of course the social acceptance, introducing new technologies is essential. And that drives to the mega trends which we see. Decarbonization, electrification, decentralizing, and digitalization. And that affects our whole life. And wind in this is now an increasing contributor to reduction of CO2. That sets a frame. And what has been done so far in the wind business. And the numbers are small, you can't see it, but I will explain. And it was an ups and down. You see especially the last years, 2013, where America dropped significant in the installations. That's the buff number is the installations per year. But however, not giving up, we reach now 50 plus gigawatt new installation in the last 3 years in a row, which is significant. And giving a little bit perspective, what means 50 gigawatt? Is that a lot? Is that less? It means that every day round about 70 windmills are installed globally. And that derives to a roundabout number of close to 490 gigawatt, and that's big numbers. So we are not what. So, and I may refer to Italy. Italy, in the cumulated capacity of wind power, is under the top 10. Yeah, and contributing here significant to this, and that's around 10 gigawatt, 9 point something if you correctly. So, of course, dominating is China, which is huge demand, US, and then Germany is coming in the cumulative figure. Indian is catching up very soon due to new technologies. So moving on. I talked about, is that real business? What means 50 gigawatt? So last year, the investment increased to 110 billion euro. So in Italy words is Milliarden, huh? Yeah, like in Germany. So don't mix it. So, and 1.1 billion people were employed in 15. And if you give a relationship, is a little bit, if you install 1 megawatt, Milliarde, yeah, 1.1 Milliarde, Yeah. So a billion in English, yeah. Yeah. So engage, especially in China and all this. So it's a big number. I have, that's a report which I try to figure. It's a big number, I say it. In the UE, I know directly engaged are 1 million. Directly engaged. But if you calculate that from a global standpoint and say every megawatt produced, installed, needs 13 people in a year. And for O&M, for later, once you have installed, it's around about a factor of 0.33. So that is a business at the moment. It's not like the car business, because how many cars do we have? 1.2, 1.3 billion, isn't it? And only 1% is hybrid cars, electric cars. Can you imagine if 10% coming into, how many electric power do we need? That's unbelievable, because the transportation sector only represents 3% using renewable at the moment, roundabout. So, small number. I mean, this gives a total different perspective. If you look that and say electrification coming, cars coming into the loop, that's a huge demand. And moving on, why is wind so attractive? Because we always hear a new product, a young business, it's costly. If you look at the right side, we are near or lower than the normal conventional fuel cost. We call it levelized cost of energy. That is round about $50 per megawatt, and coal is even higher in that. 4% of the overall demand in electricity is served by wind now. And you see it in the upper right side also in comparison to the gas power plant. Wind is picking up heavily. This is for the EU. So moving on, having said, what's in the future? What is said in the future? 60 gigawatt plus will be installed, and they are around 15 gigawatt in Europe. So it's moving on. Asia will lead, Europe and America will follow, and especially the Latin Americas will catch up a little bit, but on a very low level. So some more facts. Some more facts if you... So I talked about the landscape. When business is coming, you can make money as it looks like, different players coming in, or a consolidation is happening. And we learned about today also companies has bought. So the big players are globally operating. You can only make business in that when you are global setup, or you are a strong regional player like the Chinese one. What goes on in the market? Examples of consolidation is Nordex and Acciona, Siemens and Gamesa together, so forming big international corporations, companies to be successful. And I think this is also what I see here. It starts with association, it starts with companies cooperating, and then you can move things. Then you have R&D money for inventions and so on. Now Italy, and allow me to give that in a little bit more detail, because I'm very touched about what they have said, the politicians. They want to have 27% renewables as a final target in 2030. It's in the draft at the moment. Does that mean if you model that, it is around 50% share of electrical demand in 2030 by renewables. And as you have sun, more sun than Germany, of course PV will play, photovoltaic will play a huge role, and then of course wind. What does it mean is wind could be 19 gigawatt, so another 9-10 gigawatt added, and PV to be added round about 46 gigawatt. And what happened when the politician goes, shit, no problem. Yeah, now it's coming. Yeah, sorry, and just say one element which also will affect you is when the politicians changing the models and the frame, then immediately a young industry gets stuck, boom, and needs to sort it out. Yeah, and it takes time, and then cash is running and so on. So there's a very practical relationship to also the change model, Mr. You have to stay on course, otherwise you are off the road. Technical, we talked about technology. And here's an example of a manufacturer who made it happen in around 5 years to increase the output of a machine of 65%. With a lot of effort, but very successful. So, it's larger rotor, it's increasing rating, higher hub heights to catch more wind, and general more output. Very important to say. And I think if I see now the additive or the 3D printing, I call it, it's also something. It gets bigger. When is the next machine on the market? When can I do a full gear, etc., etc. So that will be an interesting thing to follow. Moving on. And here it's your playing field, of course, more than mine. What happened? Of course, the wind industry as a young industry is very, very conservative in the design philosophies. But nowadays, of course, you're going for lightweight and high torque densities in gearboxes. Introducing, instead of 3-planet, a 5-planet. Integrating also we talked about electric mechatronic. Nowadays very popular, and they will come, is a hybrid drive. Generator and gearbox is integrated. And it's not a small one. It's a main gearbox which weighed 40, 50, 60 tons. So, and that is of course also all the journal bearing stuff. It's not easy for us. We're used to roller bearings, to introduce, to test. It's now tested since 6 years. Now it's ready to go on. Good. Okay. How, and now a little bit theory again, practical theory. How was it happened? Look into the box. The approach is one thing, look into the box. And that is what I mean. It's always fancy to say look out of the box. But sometimes you experience that you don't know what you have in the box. And there is more in than engineers can expect it. So push them, leverage the technology and upgrade first. Then the next phase is think out of the box. And the third is get rid of the box. There's a fundamental change of things you should do, leapfrog and then set the trend. Because we all know there is a management theory of saying that only the top 3 are surviving on a long term, if you are. And I think your organization will be or should be one of the top 3 in the world to continue to make business and supply. What happened in my area was, of course, we transitioned the portfolio in 3 years, and that's not small ones, normal. We reduced the time to market by half, and then we delivered 6 product variants per year. And that's for the big, heavy stuff, very big, because we were 5 years behind the competition. So that's my philosophy, and if I can now wrap up, we are still young, but there is a way to tap a huge potential. As I said, 60 gigawatt plus installation in the coming years. There is better economical attractiveness and needs further cost-efficient innovation. And then, of course, I'm looking to him, because he is one of the big suppliers to the wind industry. Not only, fine, I know. No, and then, of course, the political frame has to support our growing in that. And there is a moderate scenario which said in 2030, and it's not far away. It's what, 12 years? Close to. Yeah, it is. Oh. Yeah. There could be that 15%, and we talked about 4 today, 15% of the global electricity demand is covered by wind, and that means around about 3.5 from today. And with that last sheet, I would like to close my presentation. I made the quote to Mr. Edison. He said once, the value of an idea lies in its implementation. So I only can encourage you to continue your way here with joining the association, joining forces, standing on 2-3 feet and moving on. And with that, thank you very much for listening.